In Entity Framework, you may have a class called student, which maps to a student table. But what if you wanted to create an object in C# that doesn't actually contain all the properties of a student class or a student table? What you need to create in that instance is called a student DTO. DTO stands for Data Transfer Object. This is the C# vanilla flavor class or plain old C# object, POCO, that has the field that you want. And then what you can do is, using Entity Framework, you need to register that with Entity Framework within the onModel creating, which is within your DB context class. So here we create inherit from DB context, and we created a class called school context. And within here, we have the onModel creating, and we are going to override that. And when we override it, we are going to add in model builder entity, and we're going to add in our student class name for student DTO, data transfer object. And we're just going to say it has no key, because if you look at our class, it has no key, whereas the original class does have a key. This may be used in a situation, for example, for your front-end application, or for example, an API call where you're only interested in name and age and nothing else. So in order to use this, what you need to do is, when you query your data, for example, in this instance, we are going to use this from SQL method, and you can see we are only putting in the name and the age from the student's table here. Notice here we are using context.set, and in the angled brackets, we are putting in our student DTO, and then the rest of it is same as any old Entity Framework code. So the only difference here is these two commands, which is set, and we're just applying it with our student DTO. And what Entity Framework will do is, it will look at student DTO and map the fields coming from your query here, name and age, to the student DTO class. So this class basically will let you transfer from complex objects into simple objects that may be needed somewhere in your program. So here you don't need everything, for example, so you wouldn't reuse this class. So instead you have created a smaller class that only has the relevant properties that you need. So if I run this code, you can see here we are then just looping through and printing out the name and the age of the student, which are the two properties that are available. So this object here, student DTO, could be passed to other places within your program, or if you have a web API, then it could be passed there as well. So if I run left, and here you can see we've got the output, which is John and 21. So this is a simple output just to demonstrate the DTO option within Entity Framework. Remember, DTO stands for Data Transfer Object.